I hope President Trump will walk away or fly away from Beijing back to Washington with one key message. That is, China is not an enemy of the United States.
President Xi and President Trump agreed on a new vision of building a constructive China-US relationship of strategic stability. So how do you understand this new positioning and what is actually new about it?
President Xi Jinping of China proposed that China and the United States should characterize the bilateral relations as constructive, strategic, and stable relations. And President Xi Jinping also emphasized that this should be the guiding principle for the coming 3 years and beyond. I understand President Trump more or less kind of agreed and reciprocated. The important thing is that China proposed this should be the characterization of the bilateral relations. President Trump had a chance to listen to that. The head of state diplomacy becomes extremely important because we believe it can help set up the guardrail as well as the roadmap going forward. Now, when President Xi Jinping said it should be considered as constructive, stable, and strategic, it will be implemented on the Chinese side. Different levels of the government, all the practitioners involved, all the diplomats, for example, as well as all the other aspects in the society. So in China, we have this cohesion. And once decision is made at the very top, the whole system follows suit, and efficiency will be very high.
You mentioned the 3 years and beyond. That means in the Trump's presidency, China-US relation will become manageable or predictable?
Well, President Trump's second presidency has a little bit less than 3 years to run till January the 20th, 2029. So for President Xi Jinping to talk about the coming 3 years is absolutely reasonable and very pragmatic. He basically says, well, during your presidency or the remainder of your presidency, let's make joint efforts to make sure China-US relations are constructive, are stable, and are strategic. And he also mentioned beyond, meaning whoever will succeed President Trump as the next president of the United States, we want to make sure that the stable, constructive, and strategic nature of the China-US relations will not only survive the coming 3 years during the remainder of President Trump's second presidency, but also will continue into the future to guide and lead China-US relations in the coming years.
President Trump sounds very diplomatic during his visit to China. And how do you rate his tone? Is that just a diplomatic courtesy, or does it reflect a more realistic understanding of these relations?
You asked me to rank this state visit out of 0 to 10. I would say it's 9.999. Why? Because it's highly successful. It's a pleasant visit, and it generates more confidence going forward. So I think President Trump really did excellently in handling his second state visit to China, and his cabinet members or the other government officials as well as the business tycoons were also very well received on the one hand by the Chinese side, but also put their respective best feet forward. It's a very heartwarming moment in China-US relations, and the major deals talked about, the 17 business tycoons gathered together with Trump in Beijing, in my view, put an end to the decoupling tactic of the United States or Western countries from China. It put an end to the de-risking strategy of the United States or Western countries against China. It really put last nail in these highly misguided strategies. How can you decouple from China? How can you deal with China as nothing but a risk? Fundamentally, I hope President Trump will walk away or fly away from Beijing back to Washington with one key message. That is, China is not an enemy of the United States. The Chinese people are not enemies of the American people. In China, we want to be on equal terms as friends, as partners with the Americans, we want to get along with the United States.
That's basically my question. Thank you very much, Mr. Gao.
Thank you so much.